Before a woman enters a commitment, one of the most important conversations she can have is about values and life purpose. Attraction may spark quickly, and shared interests can make the beginning light and easy. But what sustains a relationship over years is alignment in deeper directions. Values act like the roots of a tree, invisible at first, but they determine whether the tree can withstand storms. If one partner seeks growth, meaning, and long-term vision, while the other clings to comfort or avoidance, the imbalance eventually surfaces. That is why this first conversation is less about romance and more about truth. Carl Jung wrote that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires knowing who you are and what you are moving toward. Without this clarity, people project their unmet desires and unresolved conflicts onto a partner, hoping the relationship will fix what they have not faced. When a woman asks about values, she is not interrogating a man. She is protecting both of them from falling into projection. She is asking, can our paths walk side by side without one of us disappearing? The way he responds reveals far more than his words. A man who takes the time to reflect, who names what matters to him, even if imperfectly, shows maturity. He may say, I don't have every detail figured out, but family growth and integrity are non-negotiable to me. This kind of honesty demonstrates self-awareness. But a man who mocks the question, who shrugs and says, I don't think about that stuff, signals avoidance. Vagueness is not humility. It is often the shadow resisting accountability. Jung would call this the refusal to integrate, the refusal to bring unconscious drives into consciousness. Examples from daily life highlight why this conversation matters. Imagine a woman who values financial responsibility, saving for the future, and planning with care. If her partner dismisses money management as unnecessary, conflict will inevitably follow. Or think of a woman whose life purpose includes community service, creativity, or spiritual depth. If she binds herself to someone who dismisses these pursuits as unimportant, her essence will be slowly eroded. Even lifestyle rhythms, one longing for stillness and simplicity, the other chasing constant stimulation, can turn into points of fracture if not addressed early. What looks like a small difference at the start becomes a canyon over time. For women who have lived through decades of compromise, this conversation is even more vital. Many have carried the memory of silencing themselves to preserve a relationship, only to discover later that the cost was too high. They know now that compatibility in values is not negotiable. Mature love is not about adapting endlessly, but about walking in alignment. To ask about purpose is to honor the lessons carved by past pain. This conversation also protects against illusions that arise in the intoxication of early attraction. Chemistry can mask incompatibility, making two lives seem harmonious when they are not. By sitting down and discussing what each envisions, family, career, independence, spirituality, or retirement, a woman brings light into what could otherwise remain shadowed. She ensures that love is built on shared ground, not just on fleeting emotion. The impact of this conversation is psychological as well as practical. When a woman validates her own vision, she affirms her dignity. She communicates that she is not seeking merely to be chosen, but to choose consciously. This stance itself shifts the dynamic of power in the relationship. She is no longer waiting to see if she is enough for him. She is evaluating if the relationship is enough for her. This reversal reflects individuation, the movement from living through others' approval to living through one's own essence. The examples of divergence can be subtle but decisive. One man may say he wants children someday, while another insists he never will. One may dream of building a life in one place, rooted and stable, while the other yearns for constant travel. These are not just preferences. They are values that shape the entire trajectory of life. To ignore them is to plant a seed of conflict that will one day split the soil. The archetype of the seeker can be felt in this stage. The seeker does not accept appearances. She looks beneath, asking questions that illuminate. She knows that love without aligned direction becomes a weight rather than a gift. This is why the woman who claims her wholeness insists on this conversation. She knows that the cost of silence here is far greater than the discomfort of asking. The truth is simple but radical. Values guide relationships more than passion does. A man's willingness to speak honestly about his purpose shows whether he is prepared for partnership or still drifting in avoidance. For the whole woman, this conversation is not about control, it is about truth. It ensures that love, when it arrives, is not only beautiful in the beginning, but sustainable in the long run. By daring to ask, she is not demanding too much. She is protecting the very ground on which her peace and future will stand. Before committing herself, a whole woman knows that she must have a direct conversation about limits and respect. Too often, relationships falter not because of dramatic betrayals, but because of the subtle erosion of boundaries, moments when her no was dismissed, her space was ignored, or her needs were treated as secondary. Speaking about what is non-negotiable before stepping into deeper involvement is not about rigidity, it is about truth. Love cannot thrive where dignity is denied. This conversation reveals more about a man than almost any other. When she names her boundaries, whether about honesty, fidelity, personal space, or how disagreements are handled, his reaction becomes a mirror of his maturity. A man who listens with openness, even if it challenges him, shows that he values her essence. A man who resists, mocks, or accuses her of being too demanding exposes his unreadiness for real partnership. Jung would describe this as shadow work avoided. Rather than integrating responsibility, he projects his discomfort back onto her. Boundaries are not walls. They are the architecture of intimacy. They create the conditions where two people can meet as equals rather than as extensions of one another. Without them, one person inevitably becomes diminished. With them, the relationship gains shape, direction, and safety. For the woman, speaking boundaries is not just an act of communication, it is an act of individuation. She refuses to dissolve into someone else's expectations and instead affirms her authentic self. Everyday examples make this visible. A woman who says, "I need time for myself each week," is not being distant. She is preserving her individuality. A woman who insists that conflict must be handled without insults is not being controlling. She is safeguarding emotional respect. A woman who says that dishonesty ends the relationship is not being harsh. She is protecting the sacredness of trust. These are not extreme demands. They are the minimum foundation of a mature bond. The archetype of the queen captures this moment. The queen does not explain her worth endlessly. She embodies it through her standards. By defining what she will and will not accept, she does not close herself to love. She protects love from becoming diluted. Her boundaries are not about fear, but about sovereignty, ensuring that anyone who enters her life does so with reverence rather than entitlement. The beauty of this conversation is that it acts as a natural filter. Men who are emotionally immature often reveal themselves quickly when confronted with clear boundaries. They may grow defensive, attempt to negotiate away her standards, or retreat entirely. This is not failure, it is clarity. It saves her years of quiet frustration by exposing the truth at the beginning. On the other hand, men who are capable of mature love respond differently. They may ask questions, reflect, or even express gratitude for her honesty. These responses show readiness, not perfection, but willingness to grow beside her. Culturally, women have often been told to downplay their boundaries to avoid scaring men away. Yet the truth is that scaring away the wrong men is part of the gift. Boundaries do not repel love, They repel those who cannot offer love in its mature form. For the woman who values her peace, this is not loss, but liberation. Jung's teachings remind us that individuation requires stepping out of inherited roles of compliance and into authentic self-expression. By naming her non-negotiables, a woman is not being harsh. She is living in alignment with her soul. She is saying, "My essence is not available at the cost of my dignity." The truth is simple. The conversation about limits and respect is not just about rules. It is about freedom. It ensures that when she commits, it will not be as a woman who shrinks, but as a woman who stands whole. And in standing whole, she creates the conditions where love is not only passionate, but safe, lasting, and true. Another essential conversation before commitment is the one about the past and its emotional wounds. To know where someone has been is not about digging into details for the sake of curiosity. It is about understanding how those experiences shape the person standing before you. Every man carries marks from his history, losses, betrayals, childhood patterns, or relationships that left scars. The question is not whether wounds exist, but whether he has faced them. A man who refuses to acknowledge his past often ends up repeating it, unconsciously projecting old pain into new love. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, the hidden and unintegrated part of the psyche, contains unresolved fears, anger, and grief. If unexamined, the shadow slips into relationships, distorting perception and fueling conflict. When a woman invites a man to speak about his past, she is not asking for perfection. She is asking whether he has the courage to look at his own shadow, to name it, and to take responsibility for it. His willingness or resistance reveals his depth more clearly than declarations of love ever could. This conversation requires courage on both sides. Many women have been conditioned to silence their own pain, fearing it will be judged as baggage. Many men, in turn, were raised to bury vulnerability, equating openness with weakness. Yet when both step into honesty, the bond gains authenticity. A man who can admit, "I was hurt, but I've worked to heal," or "I have fears, but I'm learning to manage them," shows emotional maturity. In contrast, a man who dismisses all past pain or blames only others reveals unresolved wounds that are likely to resurface. Everyday life demonstrates the importance of this clarity. A man who has never faced abandonment may grow overly possessive when his partner asks for space. Another who was betrayed in the past may project suspicion, doubting loyalty even when there is no evidence. Without acknowledgement, these wounds silently control the relationship. But when they are spoken, they can be met with understanding and boundaries. The difference between projection and healing is dialogue. For the woman, asking about past wounds is also an act of individuation. She no longer commits blindly, hoping love alone will erase what history has carved. Instead, she faces reality with open eyes. She knows that love is not about fixing, but about discerning. Has he begun the work of healing, or will she be asked to carry what is not hers? This discernment protects her peace, ensuring she does not slip into the role of savior again. Jung's concept of integrating the shadow offers guidance here. When a man recognizes his pain, he brings part of his unconscious into light. This act creates space for growth and intimacy. It shows he can take responsibility for his story rather than unconsciously repeat it. A relationship where both partners have begun this integration is not free of conflict, but it is free of illusions. Each can see the other more fully, not as a projection, but as a human being with depth. The archetype of the healer comes alive in this stage, not the woman as the healer of the man, but the man as the healer of himself. His ability to tend to his wounds, to speak of them without shame, signals that he is capable of standing beside her as an equal. The woman, embodying the queen, does not lower herself into rescuing. She listens, discerns, and chooses based on truth. This conversation is not always comfortable, but it is necessary. To speak of past wounds is to reveal whether the man will build love from responsibility or from projection. To ignore it is to risk repeating the cycle of hidden pain. For the whole woman, asking about the past is not about judgment, it is about safeguarding the future. The truth is this: love matures not when wounds vanish, but when they are recognized, respected, and carried responsibly. By having this conversation, she ensures that commitment will not be built on denial, but on awareness, the soil where authentic intimacy can grow. Another decisive conversation a whole woman has before committing is about how love and care are expressed. Attraction may ignite quickly, but the way affection is lived day after day reveals whether a relationship will nourish or deplete. Many couples assume that love is obvious, yet in practice, each person speaks it differently. One may express care through words, another through actions, another through presence. When these languages of affection are not discussed openly, silence and confusion creep in. What feels natural to one may feel invisible to the other. This is why it matters to ask, how do you show love? How do you feel cared for? His answers, and even more, the way his actions align with them, reveal truths that cannot be ignored. A man may say, "I value honesty," yet avoid difficult conversations. He may declare, "I'm attentive," yet fail to notice when she is struggling. These small incoherencies are not harmless. They expose whether love is rooted in depth or in performance. For a woman committed to her peace, clarity here is non-negotiable. Jung's psychology reminds us that true intimacy requires integrating both anima and animus, the inner feminine and masculine energies, into balance. The mature lover archetype embodies this integration, desire tempered with responsibility, passion anchored in respect. When a man shows love consistently through care, presence, and reciprocity, he demonstrates that he has begun this integration. His affection is not impulsive, but grounded. His desire is not just to take, but to sustain. Examples from everyday life show how revealing this conversation can be. A woman notices that her partner buys her gifts, but never asks how she feels after a hard day. Another finds that while her partner says he values quality time, he spends most evenings distracted. These mismatches do not necessarily mean lack of love, but they reveal gaps that, if unaddressed, can erode intimacy. Conversely, when a partner listens carefully, remembers details, and shows consistency between words and actions, his presence becomes a foundation she can trust. For the woman, this conversation is also about reciprocity. She asks herself not only how he demonstrates care, but whether she feels free to give her own without fear of being dismissed. Mature love is not one-sided. It is a rhythm of giving and receiving that leaves both nourished. When she feels that her gestures are valued and his are steady, the relationship flows. When she feels drained or unseen, it is a signal that alignment is missing. Another layer of this dialogue involves subtle observation. Words may charm, but actions reveal. A man may say he respects independence, yet grow distant when she spends time on her own pursuits. He may promise commitment, yet withhold presence when it matters most. These contradictions must not be excused or romanticized. They are signals. A woman who honors her wholeness learns to trust what she sees rather than what she hopes. The archetype of the mature lover is central here. Unlike the fleeting admirer who offers passion without depth, the mature lover combines warmth with steadiness. He is attentive not only in moments of desire, but in the daily fabric of life. He shows affection without needing to control, and he accepts love without demanding sacrifice. In his presence, care feels like freedom, not obligation. By having this conversation before commitment, the woman filters illusions from reality. She no longer confuses declarations with devotion. She pays attention to coherence. Do his actions reflect his words? And do both align with her needs? In that coherence lies the seed of trust. Without it, love becomes a constant effort to decode mixed signals, draining her peace. The truth is simple. How someone expresses love is not a small detail. It is the pulse of the relationship. By clarifying this early, she avoids years of misalignment. And by expecting reciprocity, she affirms that her needs are not excessive. They are essential. This conversation is not about demanding more, but about ensuring that love, when it grows, will be rooted in truth rather than illusion. One of the most crucial conversations before committing is about freedom and individuality. Mature love is not about fusion to the point of disappearance. It is about intimacy that coexists with autonomy. A woman who has lived long enough to know the cost of self-erasure understands that closeness without space quickly becomes suffocation. Asking how a partner views independence is not a test of control. It is a measure of trust. If he interprets her need for space as rejection, it reveals insecurity. If he honors it, it reveals confidence and maturity. This dialogue is about more than schedules or hobbies. It is about essence. Every woman carries within her passions, friendships, and rituals that belong solely to her. Protecting them is not selfish. It is survival. Jung's psychology teaches that individuation, the process of becoming whole, requires preserving one's inner life even within union. Without individuality, love collapses into dependency. With it, love becomes a meeting of two complete beings rather than two halves clinging to fill a void. The way a man responds to this conversation exposes his depth. A partner who respects her solitude, who encourages her to pursue her own projects, is saying, "I want you whole." But a man who mocks her passions, who sees her independence as a threat, is not prepared for a relationship of equals. His reaction reveals whether he seeks partnership or possession. The difference is decisive. Everyday examples illustrate this truth. A woman who spends Sundays with her friends may hear a mature partner say, "Enjoy your time, I'll see you later," while an insecure one accuses her of neglect. Another who treasures her morning rituals may find that a mature partner quietly honors her time, while an immature one interrupts with demands. These small reactions reveal the deeper truth. Is her individuality welcomed or resented? For the woman, this conversation is also about magnetism. Paradoxically, the more she insists on her own life, the more radiant she becomes in the relationship. A woman who does not disappear into another commands respect. She is admired not only for her presence, but also for her independence. Her autonomy does not weaken love, it strengthens it. The archetype of the queen embodies this balance. Rooted in her own sovereignty, she shares her life without apology and without surrendering her essence. Examples from real lives show how powerful this balance can be. One woman, after keeping her creative work alive alongside her marriage, discovered that her partner's respect for her independence deepened their bond over decades. Another, who chose to travel alone periodically, found that the space she created for herself kept her relationship fresh rather than fragile. Both reveal the same truth. Freedom does not diminish connection, it sustains it. Jung would say that by protecting individuality, a woman protects herself, the center of her being. In doing so, she prevents love from becoming a mask or a role. She ensures that what grows between her and her partner is rooted in truth, not performance. And truth, even when uncomfortable, is the soil where mature love flourishes. The truth is clear. The conversation about freedom and individuality is not optional. It is the safeguard against losing oneself in love. By having it, a whole woman ensures that any commitment she makes will honor not only the relationship, but also her essence. And in protecting her essence, she keeps alive the very magnetism that drew love to her in the first place.